Hey there, Nexians. Maximus G here, and I'm bringing you the last final solo PvE DPS guide for the classes, the Esper. One of my favorites. I love all the classes that can deal damage and that can heal themselves. The disadvantage to this guy is again that he is in cloth armor, so he's very open and susceptible to burst damage, but we're okay with that because we like to live dangerously. Alright. So with the gear here, I've actually crafted a lot of this stuff myself. He has a lot of Masters Datascape gear, so I made some of this myself. I bought some of this off of the auction house, and none of the class sets are really essential for making this build work, but they will amplify it and make it a little bit better. And I will have a link posted below the video for the class, for the skills, and for the points and everything, and for the amp tree, so that you guys can check that out at your convenience and spec as you get points for them. But for this build, yes, note you'll need to get all your ability points and all of your amps. Okay, so I recommend for the weapon that you go with the detonation rune. This is really always the best DPS choice for a damage rune for a weapon. For the helmet, you're going to want deadly blows. This character utilizes critical hit chance and critical hit severity majorly. So deadly blows for the fusion rune and the helmet. And for your basic sets, you're also going to want devastation and onslaught. Here in the shoulders, we don't have a fusion rune, but devastation 6, onslaught 4. Here I've got, this is where I've got the fiendish one, but in here you would want to go with a flurry for the fusion rune, and then basically something like this, a devastation 6 and onslaught 2, or something like that, or like in the helmet, like I have this one, you could go with that layout for this one if you didn't have like a high enough level chest for that set rune there, for that set. And that escapes, so you want True Strike in your shoulder, in your glove, sorry. No fusion runes there, 6 and 4, devastation and onslaught. And I found with this class, this is another class that can utilize the PvP superb class set out in open world, and it helps for both PvE and PvP. So I'll check it out, read it out for you guys so you can see how it will help with bombardment. So reduces the cooldown of your spectral form by 5 seconds, and activating spectral form grants extra empower, which is damage dealt. So that's your basic, that's your innate ability right there. So that's going to help you for both PvP and PvE purposes. Okay, so that's a really good one to have, but this only works out in open world. Okay, and also Reap and Concentrated Blade will also apply extra dot damage. Okay, every 1 second for 3 seconds, depending on how much your assault power and skill is. Okay, so we've got Devastation, an onslaught as much as we can get it. Now I have pure and divine class sets in my gear, and I'll show you how they're helping out this tune here, but they're not essential for this build. So upon generating a side point, you gain empower and increases your damage dealt, stacks 5 times. At 3 or more stacks, Fiendish Telekinetic Strike and Psychic Frenzy deal additional damage. So useful to have, but not essential for the build. And down here we've got Bombardment, reduces the cooldown of no, that's Mental Prowess. When going above 3 side points, you gain Empower, increases your magic damage dealt. Okay, so above 3 side points, higher damage. And also, when you activate your creates a field lasting 10 seconds while in the field, consumers that deal damage reduce the cooldown of assault abilities. And what it means here is this here. When you activate your spectral form, it creates a field that you stand in. I have to be in combat to activate my innate ability, but you'll be able to see the ring around you that will form, and then you stand in it, and it will basically, yes, increase your damage and reduce the cooldowns of your abilities when you cast. Okay, so I've gone over the gear and quickly go over the ability and the amp tree here before I go out on into danger. Okay, so I'm liking the ranged version of this. There's also a melee spec, but I like ranged, personal preference. So for this ranged one, we're going to go Mind Burst at tier 8. Okay, so tier 4 on hit deals additional 7% of the initial damage done over 4 seconds, and it stacks twice. So that's, direct damage instantly, and then dot damage afterwards, and it'll stack twice with 2 hits. And if you hit them with 5, if you have 5 side points when you hit them, the consumer will grant empower and it'll increase your critical hit and multi-hit severity by 10%. So really, ideally, you want to have 5 side points when you pop off your Mind Blast to deal the most damage and get the most damage from both of those tier point skills. And Spectral Swarm, we're going to have spec with amps. Okay, so this is going to be tier 8 as well. The Phantoms are going to give you some life steal. This is going to give you a bit of sustain. The health is returned unmitigated, which is awesome. And once the Phantoms have expired, they'll explode and they'll deal area effect damage, which is awesome as well. Okay, so then we've got Haunt here. It has a nice short cooldown. These abilities have nice short cooldowns, and this doesn't really have any cooldown. As long as you have side points, you can throw out a Mind Blast. Okay, so this has a nice short cooldown. Tier 4 grants some power, increases your damage dealt for 5 seconds by 6% after you use this. And after using your Haunt, your next assault finisher deals additional damage. So even if you don't have full side points, you know, when you cast your assault finisher like Mind Blast, if you get this out first, it will still, even at 1 or 2 side points, but this will still deal additional damage from this ability. Okay, so this is fantastic. Alright, so, and the other abilities this year's Telekinetic Strike is to build your side points. It's also your long range pull. Okay, Mind Blast is your damage and your dot. This is also direct damage and dot life return. Concentrated Blades, these are on a delayed timer. They take time before they're going to actually reach and hit their target, but when they do, they're going to deal damage, they're going to generate side points. So this is important to note later on, because with proper timing, you're going to be able to have 5 side points, and then you're going to be able to cast an assault finisher, and then these blades are going to hit almost immediately after and generate another additional 2 side points immediately after if you time this fairly correctly. Okay, so we've got Reap, and Reap does a lot of damage, and also good to note that it generates side points when you use it. You can only use it when above 2 side points, but it does generate an additional side point when you use it. And now Telekinetic Storm, this is a bit of a swappable ability. I like having a dot on my bar, not only as a second assault finisher that I can use, but it's area effect damage for mobs. You can use it to pull a group of mobs with just like a 1-point pull instead of using a Mind Blast, and to pull everything else around it. But it's also convenient if you're running around with your PvP flag on, because even if you don't have points spec'd in it, you can still basically build up side points, dot your target, and run around healing yourself with Mind over Body. Mind over Body, great to note, not only is it a very short heal that costs very little focus, has no cooldown, but it also generates side points while you use it. So you can basically build up side points, dot your target with Telekinetic Storm, and then just run around healing yourself, building up more side points while they're, you know, if they're chasing you, evade, right? Turn around, dot them again, around, heal yourself up, build more side points. It's fairly cheap. And of course, get your other attacks in as well when you can, right? And then, of course, we've got Haunt there as well. So I'm going to go over the amp tree nice and quick here. We've got these points, assault all the way up, armor penetration all the way up. Okay, we've got 2 points here in strike through. We're going to take every single one of these abilities here, because these are all going to be helpful for us. I'm not going to read all of them out, but if you guys want to read them on the link for the skill, for the ability, for the build, then you can check these all out and you can read them, or you can just mouse over them in your game. Okay, so and then we've got Figment here, we've got Spectral Swarm, which you need to unlock the ability on your action bar. And cooldown, I always recommend taking cooldown, 3 points in cooldown for 15% cooldown reduction. It's extremely helpful. And then Mental Overflow is an extremely helpful ability to have for PvP and PvE. So when your side points build up to 5, and then you generate 2 additional side points, they'll store them and save them in like a saving, okay? And then when you use your assault finisher, it will use 5 side points, but you'll still be left with the additional side points that you had saved, and it will save up to 2 additional side points, okay? So you'll be back at 2 additional side points, at 2 side points after firing a 5 assault finisher, and you only have to build up another 3, or 1 even, to get your damage boost up, 3 more to hit out another 5 assault finisher. Alrighty, so this is very great, and you'll see this in action. And we've got critical hit chance all the way up, critical hit severity all the way up. Pain, pain, no, pain. Taking damage has a 10% chance to generate a psi point. I found this has been incredibly helpful to generate psi points while in combat. Taking damage, generates extra psi points, and you're almost always going to be taking damage while you're in combat. Activating Spectral Form grants some power and gives you extra damage. I've really found this is the best option. Even if you don't use your Empower a lot, it doesn't have a terribly long cooldown, especially if you can get it down to 25 seconds with your Superb class set, but even 30 seconds isn't that long. Okay, so those are the amps there. And now I'm going to go find a challenge to do, and I will start going through the rotation. As a matter of fact, here, I'll start off with one of these guys here, so we can get through a slightly longer rotation. So right here, 1, 2, okay, and there. My button's not going off. Oh, my bind. I recommend, if you can, putting buttons on your mouse to the last buttons on the action bar, because they're a little bit hard to hit. They're a little bit hard to reach, and then it will save you the trouble of having to click. This is the circle that you need to stand in to get your reduced cooldown. And it's really not easy if you have to keep clicking that. This is just showing you right here why it's good to have this on your mouse if possible. We can heal ourselves. See, it's nice to have yourself a heal in combat. I will quickly and easily change my key binding. There we go. Because it's really hard to reach your hand all the way over to the 8 button. So having, anything, I usually like to keep, these ones here on my mouse because they're a little bit too far for my hand to reach all the way over that way. I know, it seems like it's not that far, but really it is. So now we'll see it with, not that I have it on my mouse. Now my mouse, look, it's stuck. There we go. There we go, much better. Much better. Okay, so now once you hit him with 2 Mind Blasts, it's safe to hit him with a Telekinetic Storm and add that extra dot, and let your other dots deal their damage over that 4 seconds. And you're hitting him with a 5-point Psy Blast with a Telekinetic Strike. Now, if you don't want to use this, the reason why it's not always necessary to have is you can swap this out and throw on an Interrupt. A lot of people like to have an Interrupt on their bar. It's not essential for fighting trash mobs, depending on how fast you kill them. But if you're going to go with any of them, I recommend using Crush. And I would swap out Telekinetic Strike, and then you still have your Mind Blast. And you have an Interrupt as well. And now really you've got it all. But for fighting trash mobs, you don't really always need an Interrupt. See how fast we go from 5 and then back up to 5 Psy points. There we go. So Spectral Swarm is instacast. Okay, almost all of these abilities are instacast. The only one that's not instacast is Telekinetic Strike. That's the only one that is a channeled ability, and everything else is basically instacast. Your Concentrated Blades have a delayed time before they go off, but they are still instacast. So this is an instant Psy point, this is an instant Psy point, this is an instant Psy point. These are 2 delayed Psy points. And your Telekinetic Strike is also, I suppose, a delayed Psy point. But you have basically 1, 2, 3 instant cast direct damage ability Psy points. You just can't really cast them all simultaneously. You need to start with at least 1 open of Telekinetic Strike, or have more Psy points already. Like this. And it's a pretty big circle. It's pretty hard to not see how big it is to stand in it. And that's from the Mental Prowess class set. It's pretty cool, huh? And of course, as you get roughed up, you've got heals, you've got an interrupt, you've got fast side point generation, you've got direct damage. Yeah, basically, I mean, they've got so much. And if for PvP, they've got so much CC. But this is the PvE solo DPS guide for the Esper guys, okay? Hope you like it. It's the last one. Like and share with your friends. Tell them all about it, okay? And I got more on the way. Check it out.